What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, well, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you're searching on the internet for another movie podcast or another, place that you can call home and just talk about movies with, people in your community or with us or whatever, and you just love movies, and you accidentally came across ours, and you're not really sure what you're getting yourself into, I can rest assure you, don't run away. Don't get scared now. We welcome you. We want to, gain new listeners and everything, and we want you guys to just enjoy movies as much as we do because we love talking about them, and so hopefully you guys can stay. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. And if you are new, what we typically do is we'll go over some movie news and some trailers that drop throughout the week, and we will commentate on them for you guys. And we will review a movie or movies on the weekend that we are recording, and of course the box office results to accompany that. And of course, with the reviews, we might do a blockbuster, a couple blockbusters, an indie film, or a mix of the two, and just kind of give you guys a full spectrum of the industry. That's what we like doing. We like to give you guys a little bit of variety. This is episode 237, and we are going to be doing, as our main review, Ant-Man and the Wasp. It is the 20th film from Marvel Studios, also their 10-year reunion, or not reunion, 10-year anniversary this year. My high school reunion was 2 weeks ago, and Joel's was last week, so I got that on the brain. Anyways, yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp is our main review, and then of course Joel will introduce the mini review that he is doing, and yeah, that's basically the show, guys. But speaking of the Joel, how are we doing this week?
Oh, pretty good. Eventful week at work, especially because we have a sale going on. So, crazy people come out during sales. It's great. And at home, you're just kind of chilling, pretty much. So, not a very eventful week at home. But yeah, my grandparents left. They were here for 10 days, so that was neat to have them visit, and then just went straight into a busy weekend. So how was yours?
It was pretty good. Didn't really do too much. I'm continuing on my Game of Thrones adventure before the last season as requested. But my girlfriend, she was just like, if we're going to watch the last season, you're going to watch all the previous ones. I'm like, cool. That's like many hours of my life that I got to get through. But, I'm starting to finally get into it, and we're in season 4. So it took a while for me. But, we get in there. As far as movies, I didn't really watch anything this week. It was just anticipation for Ant-Man and the Wasp. This summer's been pretty nice to us. So we've had Infinity War, Deadpool 2, Incredibles 2, and now this one. And of course, we're gonna have a break after this one for a long time. But it's a nice little addition to the superhero slot. But yeah, pretty chill weekend. I got a bone to pick with you, Joel, because you said that all the crazy people come out during those sales. We did that sale. We went to the movie trading company down the road from my apartment, and we participated in that sale. Are you saying that we are crazy?
Yes, I am.
Probably.
Love you guys.
I didn't get any movies or anything. I was just kind of looking around, but I got my girlfriend an Office T-shirt, so that's what we got.
Nice.
Because they have some pretty cool T-shirts, Joel. And so, I got.
Yeah, they're able to hold them. We are not. We aren't big enough. There are some things that our store can't hold that they can, just because they're a big store.
Oh yeah, it's
I think the one.
If you guys
the one that you went to is like
it's a huge warehouse.
Yeah, it's basically the one that he went to is the size of like a Best Buy to give you all an idea. And ours is about half that. So we're just not able to hold toys or T-shirts or comics. But pretty much everything else we have. So,
but hey, as long as you guys stay busy, then you're good. So,
and we also can't hold VHS tapes, which I know Greenville does a few of those, at least like a shelf worth kind of thing, or shelf space worth.
Yeah, there's like a whole I'd say a good couple yards worth of shelves, and it's like all
99 cents. Yeah,
it's I want to know who actually goes into those stores and
Oh, you'd be surprised, because we get a lot of people who try to sell VHS tapes to us that they still have.
Oh, that's crazy.
And people occasionally will come in and say, "Do you sell VHS tapes?" And we always redirect them to Greenville or Denton, I think has them too.
But see, Joel, don't you want to meet those people that, like, like when people go into a movie trading company or like a movie store, like they're mainly just browsing around. They might walk out with something, but I want to meet that one person. To where their main objective when they get in their car and they get in that parking lot, they walk in and they want to get a VHS copy of like Good Burger or something. I want to know like that person whose main directive is to get a VHS when they go there. But
at some point when I can, I want to get. I actually, and this is going to sound insane, I want to get one of each home like video system. So what I want to do, and then like cultivate a big collection of all different types. So what I want to do is like I want to get 4K player, which my dad's getting one this fall sometime. I want to get a Blu-ray player. Of course, we have that. I can just probably take one of my parents' ones, and then DVD player, a VHS, VCR, and then y'all are gonna turn the episode off now. And then I want to seek out and try to find a laserdisc player. And then what I want to do is I want to have a setup in my house and just have all of them, and then have like a selection. I probably won't be able to find many laserdiscs, but nevertheless, apparently though, you can actually find laserdiscs randomly tucked into vinyl drawers and stuff. That's what I've heard, is that sometimes the people who take them in are so dumb that they don't realize they're not vinyl, and they are actually laserdiscs. And so they'll put them in there. Like somebody was. I heard a story about somebody thumbing through and actually finding a Criterion Laserdisc of Jason and the Argonauts in a vinyl store, and buying that and telling the people who were working there that you have a Laserdisc in your store. And I don't know how that got by them, but in any case, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But what I want to do is like have those so that I have like just. I'm the weirdo with the selection that goes way back, and some people will, buy a bunch of the old school game systems and buy a bunch of old games, and our stores sell those, all the way back to the Atari. So some people do that. They'll actually seek out video game systems at one of our stores in order to have that, and it kind of makes it a little more eccentric. The vibe at their house or their living place. And so anyway, that's at some point that's a goal of mine, is to kind of have all of those, just to be that weirdo who has laser discs and VHS tapes, just in case there's some movie, for instance, that lost distribution, home distribution rights before DVDs ever came around, and are only on VHS that I can only find at one of our stores. I can have it, because it would just be pretty cool. So,
well,
anyway,
Joel, on your journey to get all these laser discs, let me just say, be careful, because the only place you're going to find them is on Craigslist. So if the house has no windows, if it smells funky, or if the front lawn is like neatly clean, like overtly clean, and like everything else behind is gross, don't approach it, because you're going to get kidnapped, and then of course I'm never going to see you again. So I'm just giving you a warning. Yeah, but that sounds like a good thing that you can keep us up to date on. So that would be something you can string our listeners on, like, how is Joel doing on his Laserdisc adventure? So there you go. So Joel, before we get into the news, what mini review do you got going on this week?
Yeah, so this week I'm going to be doing. It's going to be pretty short. There's not much to talk about it.
Hey! I told you to stop picking on that franchise. Just stop it.
I'm reviewing the first Purge. This does not mean that I'm reviewing the first Purge movie. I'm reviewing the first Purge, which just don't get the title. Anyway, yeah, so that's my review, and I will be doing that, of course, after Ant-Man. But yeah, to go ahead and jump into some of the news, there's a couple of things that happened in the last week. A lot of casting news that I decided at the last minute to scrap. We might bring some of that up next week, but just for timing purposes, I just decided to pare it down a little bit. But first, we have this weird, unprecedented move from the DGA, essentially, or from Disney, whatever, to have a shared director credit. Now, this is very interesting. So, 2 movies open on my birthday, November 2nd. One of those has gone down an interesting path, and that is, of course, Bohemian Rhapsody, which was mostly directed by Bryan Singer, and then of course he had problems on set and also problems off set, to say the least. And so he was let go from the project, and it was taken over by Dexter Fletcher, who directed some of the reshoots. But he didn't direct a lot of the reshoots, and so Bryan Singer was given sole director credit on that film. However, it seems that the Nutcracker in the Four Realms, which also opens on November 2nd, has had a different story happen to it. So it was originally directed or launched by Lasse Hallström, who of course is a really good director, or he was at some point. Directed movies like The Cider House Rules, which I love, Chocolat, which is really good. And now he's kind of jumping into big special effects extravaganzas with this one, and he directed the movie, and then it ends up that the reshoots were so extensive that he was not able to come back for them because of scheduling difficulties. And so they brought in Joe Johnston, who, of course, is the Captain America, the First Avenger director. He also did The Rocketeer, Jurassic Park 3, Hidalgo, stuff like that. And he came in and directed what seems to be, at least to me, at around 50% of the movie. He redirected it. So because of that, they actually have a shared director credit. It's going to be, as far as I understand, it's not going to be directed by Lasse Hallström and Joe Johnston on the credits. It's just going to be directed by Lasse Hallström, and then below him, Joe Johnston. So it's much like a producer credit, where they aren't sharing the credit per se, even though they're on screen together. They aren't sharing the cost. Is basically what that comes down to, the credit cost. They're actually sharing. It's sort of like a couple of producers. So this is very interesting to me, because we've had a lot of these things happen lately. Tony Gilroy took over for Gareth Edwards for Rogue One, but wasn't credited because he shot less than 50%. So this is interesting. Does it tell us that basically it was a 50-50 split, or at least like 55-45 essentially? Is that kind of what we're thinking here, Chase?
Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking. And this seems more of like a clean story rather than all the stories we've been hearing like in the past.
It was very amicable. I mean, what happened was it was literally just, there was no problem on set like there was with Bohemian Rhapsody or whatever. There was no like director studio kind of smackdown or whatever. It was literally just the director who originally directed the movie couldn't come back for the reshoots. Just because of scheduling stuff, and couldn't make it work, so they brought in a guy that had a good relationship with them, and I know that they really did work together a lot. They as far as I know, it was Lasse Hallström who suggested Joe Johnston. I know that they're old friends, so I suspect that it was just it's literally just a 50-50 thing. That's what I'm guessing. So what's your thoughts about all this?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I gathered from it, and it's really odd that in the past like couple years, like we've been seeing more and more of this, where like someone's directing a movie, someone drops out, they have to bring someone in. What is the DGA rules? Who gets the full credit? Who gets co-credit? Will someone be moved to producer and writer or something, like the whole Justice League situation? It's weird, man. We live in this time where every single month it seems like there's always something like this. But I'm glad that this was kind of a clean one. It wasn't no one played dirty, no one was being dumb. It was just kind of like, hey, something happened, someone had to step in, and we'll see how it turns out, because I know you're looking forward to it. I wasn't really blown away by the trailer, but you do you, Joel.
Well, the second trailer just released in front of Ant-Man.
Oh, okay. We didn't get that.
Oh, you didn't get that? Okay, I got the trailer. It looks a lot more. It looks even like better than the first trailer. So I wonder if you'll be sold by this. I thought that I think it looks like a lot of fun. So maybe I'm sure that they'll release it online in the next week or so. But yeah, it seemed to be an Ant-Man exclusive kind of thing, just because of the Disney connection. So it looks really good. We'll be interesting. They do lean in very heavily to Morgan Freeman's appearance in the movie, which must have seemed like a much better idea like 2 months ago, because he, in the last couple months, those reports that have come out about him. But yeah, it's a pretty good trailer. So, all right, then the next one, I don't have a whole lot of authority on this. I've seen the first movie and it's been years, but there is a Child's Play reboot in the works at MGM, and this one actually is going to be coming from the producers of It. Now, this is not like basically David Katzenberg and Seth Grahame-Smith are going to be producing this one. Grahame-Smith's involvement is very interesting. Of course, he's the guy who wrote the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter books, and then now he's kind of become a film producer with Katzenberg and this production company called Catsmith Productions. So this will be interesting because they've got the director of that movie that's like in release date hell, Polaroid, that hasn't come out. That sounds really promising. And then his name is Lars Klevberg, I think, or Klevberg. And it's going to be written by the guy who did the Kung Fury short, and I think is writing the full-length movie. But of course, this one is about the doll that kills people and comes alive because of a curse and all of that. It's well, not a demon, but it's a serial killer. Originally played by Brad Dourif. It'd be great if Dourif could come back. That would be really fun. It might be interesting if some of the old cast comes back, like Chris Sarandon or Sarandon, however you say that name. This is interesting. I mean, I don't have a real like storied history with the series. Like I said, I've seen the first one, but it's been a long time. And I was mostly lukewarm on it. It's pretty good, but it's not like some classic. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So go ahead. Are you really familiar with this series?
If I turn around in my chair right now, I can tell you with full certainty that I own all 7 of them. I love this series. I've loved it since I was a teenager, and I do believe it's one of the best kind of horror franchises out there. This story is confusing, and here's why. The first 3 Child's Play movies play off like serious horror films, like a serious supernatural slasher film. Once we get to Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, and Cult of Chucky, they all play out as goofy horror comedies. So they saw what they were doing, and it was working, but they wanted to kind of change the Chucky brand because Chucky is kind of a foul-mouthed little sailor, if you will, and Brad Dourif has really great comedic timing. So they steered it into more of a horror comedy direction, and I like both. I like both variations of the Chucky films, but I just saw the Cult of Chucky, when did it come out? I think it was last year, and I bought the Blu-ray because I like the franchise, and I watched it. It's goofy. I was entertained. The kills, they're bloody, they're violent, and they're just fun to watch. So now that we have this going on, what's going to happen with the other 7? Because the other 7, from Bride of Chucky to Cult of Chucky, so 4 through 7, kind of have a similar timeline of events. So bringing in this reboot, I'm assuming they're starting over. But are they going to go more horror comedy or more serious? Are they going to have a blend, kind of like It, where you might have your jump scares and your kind of creepy, disturbing moments and maybe like some comedy relief? Like, I just don't know what they're going to do with it, because Chucky is one of those characters to where it's hard to take serious because he's a doll. It's Charles Lee Ray, who's a serial killer. He has put his soul into a doll. Just that synopsis alone just sounds goofy. So I don't know what they're going to do with this, but I will tell you what I know. And what I know is that I've seen the It remake 4 times now in the past almost year since its release. I still have problems with it, but I can tell you right now, I view it like I view the Conjuring films or like the Insidious films. It's a great blockbuster horror film. And then I love my indie horror films, like a Hereditary. You know, it's something that just came out. So I like both types of horror films. But I do like the It movie from last year. I've seen it a lot of times, even though I have problems with it. And, you know, it's just one of those things where I have to admit to myself I like it more than I think I do, because I keep watching it and I keep enjoying it. So if you can get the producers from that movie, who they are the spearheaders on that project, you can bring them into a Child's Play type of remake. I'm more curious than anything, but I'm still confused because I don't know which way they're going to go with it, considering the fact that we still have these direct-to-DVD movies based on the same ones we've been watching since the late 80s, early 90s. So I don't know. I'm confused. I'm curious, though. I still want to see it, but I don't know what they're going to do. So I honestly don't know what to tell you.
Nice. I can't really add anything to that. So I'm just going to move on to probably my favorite bit of news of this week. Okay, so something that nobody really knows about me, I haven't even told Chase this or anything, is that Little Women is one of my favorite novels. I love that novel. I actually don't own it, but I've read it. I got it from the library at one point when I was young, and I just kind of read it in spurts, and I love it. I've seen the 94 film. It was one of Christian Bale's earliest roles. Have you seen that one, by the way? The one that had like Susan Sarandon, Winona Ryder.
Well, I'm embarrassed because I don't think I have.
Oh, okay. It's a great movie. I'm not surprised, though. It's like not really super duper available on DVD. It's not out of print, but it's probably getting there at some point. It's fairly expensive at a store like Movie Trading Company. I think it's like $9.99 or something. So, yeah, it's kind of one of those things. And I just love this material, and it's going to be adapted again. And guys, there probably could not be a better person taking on this role of adapting it, and that is Greta Gerwig, who made my favorite film of last year, With a Bullet, with Lady Bird, and very well could unite her with Saoirse Ronan, and also Timothée Chalamet. So it's going to be a Lady Bird reunion all the way. And then they're also talking to Meryl Streep, Emma Stone, and Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh was the one who kind of broke out last year with Lady Macbeth. She was also in the Commuter this year as the goth chick, whatever her name was, on the train. And yeah, I mean, this is awesome. It's a story about young womanhood, and there's so many. And Louisa May Alcott, of course, wrote it, and I love it. It's just a great story. It's got a lot of tragedy. It's got a lot of heart to it, and it's I can't wait for that. So that this is my favorite bit of news this week. So hopefully this comes out next year, because I doubt it will, just because it's so late in the process. I don't know how far in the development process this is, but if it comes out by next year, we could be looking at a lot of Oscars come 2020 Oscar season time, because it's a great story. It's likely going to be just one for the ages. I just can't wait for this. So are you familiar at all with this story?
So I'm not, but while you were talking, I did my IMDb kind of little research on it and just kind of read up on it, and it sounds really cool. I love anything that centers around Civil War era or World War II era stuff. So I want to check it out, and it's really funny because when I typed it in, another movie called Little Women popped up, and it actually comes out this year with Leah Thompson.
Yeah,
it's a modern retelling of the novel, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
so I guess they're gonna do another
interesting.
one.
And they just recently did the BBC did a mini series of it just recently with a new upcoming actress named Maya Hawke. I haven't watched that, but I definitely want to, because I'm very close to this material. I love the movie that they did in the 90s. I haven't seen it like in a long time, but I need to revisit that one. I think we have it at work, and Gabriel Byrne was in it, Kirsten Dunst, Claire Danes, Trini Alvarado. It's a really good movie. So. Yeah, and any sort of cast for this is obviously going to be very starry. So if they can get Meryl Streep to play the Sarandon role, that's That's pretty great.
I
So
mean, I have nothing really to add because I know that you're a bigger fan of Lady Bird than I was, even though I really like the movie. But just given the ingredients involved of like who's behind the camera, who's in front of it, I will check this out in a heartbeat. And this goes back to my whole no duh type of commentary. Greta Gerwig was just nominated for an Oscar. She can literally do anything she wants, and the fact that she's going to kind of tackle a very popular adaptation of a novel, oh yeah, I mean that's a great kind of follow up choice from Lady Bird. So yeah, I'm totally down for it.
all right, guys. So this last story has a lot of elements to it.
And I'm curious, by the way, because I haven't talked to you about the story, so I'm actually curious to hear your take on it.
Yeah, it's troubling in a lot of different ways. All right, so there's this movie coming out called Rub and Tug, and yes, I swear that's the name. I assume that they're going to change that at some point because I can't imagine they keep that on. Although I kind of hope they do. Anyway, this one's about the adventures of a transgender man named Dante Gill who went by Tex. And they're making a movie about him. He was basically a very much, very kind of a crime kingpin. Went through like the Pittsburgh Mafia and set up a steroids ring that helped fuel the Steelers to kind of their dynasty. And in any case, his story is being told and Scarlett Johansson's going to play him, so this is weird. Now, it gets worse than this because of a certain response that happened. Boy. But yeah, so first of all, there's a lot of elements in having a cisgender actress play a transgender man because of the whole thing involving gender. And that's not something that I can really speak on with much authority, and I don't think either of us can. We don't have those experiences. But in any case, there's a lot of bad optics there just because of, and further than bad optics, I'm sort of intentionally underplaying that with the phrase. But yeah, it basically kind of propagates this idea that transgender men who were born, physically as women are actually women, which is not how that works. And so you have a cisgender actress playing a transgender man. It's just not good, and it gets worse because Johansson was reached for comment, and her rep came back and said something to the effect of, I will point you to like the reps for Jeffrey Tambor, and I don't know if she mentioned Matt Bomer or the rep mentioned Matt Bomer because he was just recently in a movie that kind of did a similar thing, just in reverse. And yeah, there's just a lot of really troubling things here because mostly because of the casting itself, which is, there have been a lot of people who've made the point that it's kind of dangerous for the transgender community to have casting like this because it further propagates those ideas that are really dangerous and used as the source of violence. I think that there's a bit of a kind of a disconnect there. I don't quite know if it's that simple. I don't know if it's that black and white, but certainly it's not a good idea to do that because of where we're at as a society in understanding these issues. So just want to get your take on this because I mean it's troubling, right?
It's troubling, and
it's troubling too because there's also so there's a warring factor here. So the issue of representation when it comes to members of a community kind of contributing to the art that belongs to that community is a big thing that is it's obviously very important. But I think that there's also another representative matter here, and that is that generally speaking, actors will go for the complex, challenging roles. So then you have the conversation about whether or not this technically kind of constitutes a challenge and what the word challenge means in this context. Because I think that sort of, it's this idea of otherism, it's kind of otherist. I don't know if you've heard that phrase, but it's kind of a new thing where the act of casting someone who is cisgender as a transgender person is done for shock value on the part of the casting directors. Now, I think it's most clearly because while there are a lot of transgender actors out there, and we just don't see them, you can't sell a movie with a no-name very well anymore. So, or a seeming no-name very well anymore. So a lot of transgender actors or actresses haven't really made their name yet. You've had a few that have broken through, obviously, but it's not like there's I guess you could say it's not like there's a rat pack of transgender actors, and by that I mean that there's this big prestige grouping out of a bunch of others that are also very visible. Because when the Rat Pack came out, obviously the whole idea is that they are the celebrities of celebrities. They're the big dogs. At some point, it was Clooney, Damon, Pitt, and DiCaprio kind of were the Rat Pack of Hollywood. So you don't have that kind of saturation of the market yet, of the acting market, of transgender actors. So if you're going to pull from that group, you really have very little to work with. Now, of course, that's a problem. There's got to be more. Got to have more opportunities for people, and doing this takes away that even the opportunity for someone to make their name in a role like this. And I think that's the clear-cut part of it. But yeah, there's just so many different moving elements to the story. And
yeah,
so
this isn't a one issue thing, and I know it's going to make some people angry, but hear me out. This is a lose-lose situation for everybody, because when you are going to tackle this type of story, yes, you want representation, and you want to have a trans actor or actress featured, in this type of role. But Joel makes a good point. This is a business, and they're not going to take a risk on a no-name if they're going to sink money into a project. Scarlett Johansson's a big name right now. She wants to, separate herself from blockbusters and do more indie stuff, and so she probably thought it was a good idea for Oscar stuff and, business-wise, and it's not all her fault. It's casting director. There's a lot of moving parts to it, but I think what it boils down to is, yes, there needs to be, more representation for this, and I really hope it just in the future, it's not going to happen suddenly, but, just make progressive decisions, in the future, and, just kind of be like, hey, let's venture out a little bit and maybe see who else is out there, because I'm sure if you go to any acting agency, there's way more talent out there than you think there is. So just do a little bit more research and try to get someone that fits that role, and maybe we can start rolling the ball in that direction. So yeah, it's just a lose-lose situation. There was really no way to come out of this clean, especially in today's age.
Yeah, I mean, the only way they could do this is scrap Johansson and actually cast a transgender actor, but then the conversation will turn to, well, but you cast Johansson first.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like I said,
yeah,
lose-lose.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just going to be bad optics all around for this thing. So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty bad, and it's also coming from director Rupert Sanders, who has kind of become a pariah a bit just because of the unfair reporting around him from Snow White and Huntsman stuff with Kristen Stewart, and all of that's just whatever. So, and then they have to change the name, because I don't think that anybody's going to want to go to a theater and say, "1 ticket for Rub and Tug, please." That's just gonna be.
Yeah, that title will not stick. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, probably not. Maybe some other less obvious innuendo. Maybe make it an innuendo, but less of one, I guess. Finding Nemo. I don't know. I'm just kidding. So, all right. Uh, so bleeding into the trailers, there are a lot over the last couple of weeks. Lead us into the first one, Chase.
All right, so the first one is, oddly enough, I guess the second Purge is already coming out. Oh, wait, no, this is a different movie? Okay, so Assassination Nation is the first one, and that Purge reference is very accurate, because when the trailer was starting, I thought it was another Purge movie, and this is what the synopsis reads on IMDb. I'm just going to read it word for word, because it just the way it flows just sounds ridiculous. This is 1,000% a true story about the quiet, all-American town of Salem absolutely lost its mind. Obviously, the grammar's not there, but that's how it was typed, so I read it that way. So there's not really much that goes on in the trailer. It's basically a trailer that sticks its middle finger up to you and says, get ready, we're about to assault all of your senses and all of your offenses. We are going to offend you. Get over it, or move on with your life. That's basically what the trailer is, and it highlights a lot of things that are going to be in it. But, as I was kind of like doing more research into it, and I saw people that saw it at Sundance, there was a lot of reviews posted online. A lot of people like it. A lot of people use the same word over and over again. Overwhelming. It's kind of a, like the trailer kind of states, it's the kind of like just a movie that just assaults you with a bunch of different things, and it might be a little overwhelming, but from all the reviews I've read, it seems like it's got a lot to say. It's just going more of like a super brash route with it. So I'm down for it, just because nothing really scares me anymore when it comes to movies. I've seen some very graphic things in my day, probably stuff I shouldn't have seen, but so nothing really bothers me anymore, unfortunately. Maybe that's just how disturbing I am. I have no clue. So if there's any therapists that listen to our show...
Chase watches a Serbian film every week. I'm just kidding.
I don't watch it every week, but I did watch it that one time, and I wanted to burn my computer. But no, if there's any therapists that listen to our show, maybe you can take me in as a pro bono case, and we can examine what's going on there. But as far as this trailer goes, I think it was... edited and delivered in a way where it's going to show you what it is, and it's mainly just a teaser of a teaser just going, hey, F you, get ready for it, we are going to hold nothing back. And cool. And I think the one thing I didn't really care about the trailer is I didn't know what it was about. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't know or had any clue what the movie was about, because it was so fastly cut. And then when I went to IMDb, I was like, okay, so that's what it's about. So that's my only gripe with it, is it didn't really set up like any type of setting.
I suspect there's another trailer like that this week for you.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But
yeah, we'll get to that one.
But am I curious to see this? Sure. Because like I said, I'm pretty ballsy when it comes to this stuff. I will watch most things nowadays, but as far as like an average moviegoer, they're not going to see this. So, yeah, Joel, what did you think of it?
It's I guess an effective enough trailer. I guess I get that they do this, but kind of the making fun of the trigger warning thing, not a great place right now to do that as a society, I suppose. I guess one could argue that point, but whatever the case, it's an effective enough trailer for setting a tone. I'm not really sold on the concept. I think the concept is very much like The Purge, just without the governmental aspect. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it is. I know that it's been getting pretty good reviews, so I will be interested to see it. All right, our next trailer is stunningly great, and this one's called Beautiful Boy. Now, this is not a random remake of the 2011 film with Michael Sheen, which was about father and mother pair kind of having to deal with the fact that their son is a school shooter. that actually came out that was called Beautiful Boy, and there's actually another movie this decade with this name, fairly wide release too. This one it stars Timothy Chalamet and Steve Carell as a father and son. The son is in rehab for drug addiction, and or is I guess maybe not in rehab yet, but he's kind of in the process, kind of vaguely. Um, and they're just kind of having to deal with that and his various disappearances and all that. It's just kind of dealing with the reality of a son with addiction. And man, this trailer is excellent. It's really heartfelt. The performances look terrific. It's also got Amy Ryan, so it's a Michael and Holly reunion for the Office fans out there. And then Maura Tierney plays someone else. I'm assuming a new wife. I have a feeling that Steve Carell and Amy Ryan play exes in this. That's what I'm gathering from this. And so yeah, they're just having to deal with the son who has an addiction, and it's going to be a very serious movie about that whole process of both on the parents' part and on the addict himself, played by Chalamet. It's just a great trailer, really well cut. Comes from Amazon Studios, and yeah, so very big fan of this. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that showcases raw, genuine performances, and I'm not going to say anything because Joel just knows how great I am at predicting things, because he's always scared of me when I predict stuff, because I'm usually like 110% right. But we actually might be in a scenario, depending on how good Welcome to Marwen is, we are in a scenario where Steve Carell could get nominated for one or the other, or maybe even both. Like, it's one of these years where Steve Carell might come out on top and finally get his due for his Foxcatcher snub from a couple years ago. But no, but this trailer it's fantastic. It paints this very bleak but also hopeful type of movie where, yes, we're going to be dealing with addiction and very serious subject matter, but we are going to have, this father and son bond to where, I'm assuming at the end of the movie, I don't know how the movie or the story goes, but hopefully they can get out of this, kind of like darkness and really cast some light into the future of this, young man played by Chalamet. And so it's just a really great trailer. And
I know it's based on a true story.
Oh, okay.
And it's based on a memoir by the both of them, but that doesn't really tell us anything except for the fact that they both at some point wrote this book. Mm-hmm. So you never know. It could end in tragedy. It could end. It could end in tragedy, and it just so happened that the tragedy happened after they started writing the book. So we don't know. I don't know. Maybe there are some people who know this story really well. Please don't tell us, because I don't want to know until the movie. I kind of want to find out then. So
exactly, and I'm gonna go and just say it right now. If I had to rank a top 3 most anticipated indie films for the rest of the year, this is on there. I cannot wait to see this, and it's got some of my favorite people in it. It's like what I texted Joel when the trailer dropped. This is definitely an Office reunion, and I am not mad about that. So, yeah. But no, this actually looks like what happened after Holly and Michael got married and moved away.
Yep, they had a son
Timothy Chalamet, and here we are.
Who turned to addiction, and then they left each other. I don't know. That would be very sad, but in any case, yeah. All right, bring us into that next trailer.
So, speaking of other movies that I really think are excellent, because I want to say Beautiful Boy is my favorite trailer, but man, this one gives it a run for its money. The Hate U Give. Now, this one is based on a book, and this one is about a character who is with her. Is there a friend or her boyfriend?
I think it's a friend. I think it's just a friend.
So there's a couple of friends there driving, and they're both black, and so they get stopped by cops. He, reaches for, I believe it was a comb, and he gets shot. And so this deals with a lot of, police brutality and, racial discrimination kind of set in this community. And so, I had no idea what this was going into it, but as the trailer started, I immediately got sucked in. It was a really well edited trailer. The tension was ramped up every single time they switched scenes, and it just got more intense, and it looks like it's going to be a really strong political statement, which is not a bad thing in this era of our presidency. There's going to be movies like this where it's going to be middle fingers everywhere, so get used to it, whether you're on the right or the left. This is just how art is going to be for the next, for the time being. But this trailer, I think, delivered it very well. It's a really powerful trailer. I think it's going to, like I said, have a lot to say, but also just be a really good story as well. So it's going to play more, on both sides, where it's going to be entertainment, but also based on real life things that we are experiencing now. It's timely. It looks like it's well acted. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's just a really well executed trailer. And before we get into the second trailer with her in it, I know she's in a couple comedies this year. But Regina Hall, she's doing some good with some dramas that she's got coming out this year, and this is one of them. So, hey, you know what? When I was 11 years old and I snuck in Scary Movie from my parents and I watched it without them knowing, and I saw Anna Faris and Regina Hall in that, I'm like, I like these two actresses. And I'm like, well, Anna Faris is the lead in this. She's probably going to go somewhere. Yeah, she's doing stuff, but Regina Hall's having, like, or a bit of a comeback, because she's had a steady career since then, but now she's kind of branching out and doing more stuff like this, and I'm just really excited to see that. So I love this trailer. So this and Beautiful Boy, man, back to back, it's good trailers.
Yeah, for sure. It looks really strong, very timely, very politically charged, and I think that like you said, we're gonna be having that for a long time. It looks like a lot of really good actors came together to make this. Anthony Mackie's in there.
Yeah.
What's his name? Her father is played by a guy who's on TV a lot. He's in a lot of shows, and I forgot his name. He's on Grimm, that show Grimm. He's on several other things. Anyway, really, really strong actors in this new actress, or relative newcomer that's in the lead role. Looks really strong too. So really, really excited to see how this all plays out. Or not excited, I guess. Excited as much as one can be for a story like this, I guess. Is how I would put it. So, what's not a political statement is our next trailer. This one just looks like a really charming romantic comedy. It's called Juliet Naked. Now, this one actually comes from the director of a movie I really liked from a few years ago, Our Idiot Brother. With Paul Rudd, speaking of which.
I love that movie, by the way. I will vouch for that.
Yeah, that and Bridesmaids kind of bookended the summer with really, like, just good, feel-good, fun comedies, and I just really like both. So, they bookended that summer. So, this one stars Rose Byrne as speaking of Bridesmaids, as a... Okay, I'm sorry. Rose Byrne and Chris O'Dowd, which is actually a Bridesmaids reunion, I think, right? Wasn't he was in that, right?
Yeah, he was
pretty sure. Yeah, so interesting, Bridesmaids reunion. Between them, and they play a couple. She is just kind of the doting housewife, it seems. He's obsessed with this rock star that's kind of disappeared. The rock star is played by Ethan Hawke, and the wife, as a joke, kind of writes this negative review on some website or some comment or something for his latest album that he's just released after 20 years of silence, and he responds to it not realizing that it was insincere. He responds sincerely that he agrees, and they kind of start a correspondence and grow to like each other quite a bit, and then he comes to visit her, and anyway, it just looks really charming. It looks like there's not going to be any like genuine stakes in this relationship. It's just going to be, they meet each other, the husband kind of gets jealous, and then all is pretty much made well by the end. And I suspect that that's what's going to happen, but I don't mind, because it just looks like such a good time. It just looks very, just really, really charming, really well acted. It looks like Ethan Hawke's having a blast in this kind of role, and it just, I don't know, it just looks really good to me. So that's my takeaway from this.
Yeah, I think after watching this trailer, I want. First of all, when I was watching the trailer, I thought it was like 1997. But second of all,
Yes.
when it was done, I was like, can Ethan Hawke be the new Hugh Grant and just be in every romantic comedy from like here on out for like the next 10 years? Because hey, I remember the Hugh Grant heyday.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But no, this one, yeah, it's like you said, it's just a charming, cute little romantic comedy, and with anything with the Ethan Hawke, I'm gonna watch regardless. I mean, the man is responsible for my favorite, romance story of all time. I love the Before trilogy, and that's more on the drama side. So he's charming in that, and then when you flip him into a more of a romantic comedy state, he's just as good. And
Yeah.
I like Rose Byrne a lot. She's got a lot of charm to her. I think Chris O'Dowd is not only really smart and witty with his humor, but he's also a pretty good dramatic actor as well. A lot of people don't comment on that just because all they know him as as the comedic relief. But no, he's really good as well. So yeah,
everybody see Calvary.
Calvary was.
Calvary's
wow.
amazing, and he's great in that movie.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I won't reveal the extent of his role because it's all about the surprise at the end. But yeah, it's a great role for him, and he's terrific in that movie. So, yeah, for sure. All right, I assume that we've now reached the other trailer that I was talking about, where we don't really get an idea of what the movie's about. But tell us what it is.
Madeline's Madeline. What the holy hell is this? So, when I saw the trailer, I thought to myself, hey, this is a really well edited trailer with the graphics and the imagery. It's quite unique, and it really just screams out abstract. Where's David Lynch? And so when I got done with the trailer, I was like, what is this about? So I had to go on IMDb to see what the synopsis was, just kind of like with Assassination Nation. And it's about a theater director, and she's kind of doing her last project, and she casts this young girl, and that young girl she gets so into the project that reality and art kind of blur for her, and so it's going to kind of deal with that. So it's a lot of interpretive dancing and, kind of like theater art and stuff. So taking those concepts and making it into a very abstract trailer makes sense, but it doesn't make sense on a marketing standpoint because I had no idea what it was about. But watching the trailer, knowing what the setting is, knowing what the characters are doing in the synopsis, I want to see the movie now. But as far as a trailer goes, I can't really justify it as a good trailer because it kind of isn't. But on the same coin, it's doing what it needs to do because of what the movie's about. I don't know. As far as am I interested in it? Yeah, I'm interested. I just don't think the trailer really did a good job. So that's where I kind of stand on it.
Weird. I think it's a pretty brilliant trailer conceptually, and sometimes with those you can't really pull it off in practice. And I understand that. I think that they did in terms of trying to disorientate us, and I think that the movie's going to kind of operate on the same wavelength. I don't know if it's going to be this, this way with the weird like cutouts and stuff that it seems to like break the fourth wall in its style and stuff. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in context. It's a very interesting trailer. Except I can't really talk anymore about it. Just go watch the trailer, guys. It's very interesting if you haven't seen it yet. All right, so now we reach my favorite trailer of the week. And this one is Mandy. Now, this one's been getting a lot of raves at midnight screenings across festivals and such for a while now. But I had not, and I heard that it was pretty crazy, but I didn't realize it was this insane. So the general premise of this movie is that a guy's wife is taken and he exacts revenge. But the style of the trailer is the style as shown by the trailer is unlike anything I've seen in a while. It's got this really rich, vibrant red, blue, red and blue and various other colors, and it looks extremely kind of like if Under the Skin had been directed by Nicholas Winding Refn and was about a revenge plot. That's how I would which revenge plot is Nicholas Winding Refn. But anyway, it's not him directing this. This is Panos Cosmatos, who kind of took the indie world by storm a few years ago with this movie called Beyond the Black Rainbow, which I haven't seen. I've heard pretty great things about it, but I'm not able to find it anywhere. So I can't really see it yet. I'll try to catch up with it before this movie, but in any case, I think that this is an excellent trailer. It really sets up the world as something that we haven't really seen before. The production design, the cinematography, the types of performances that Nicolas Cage, who's in the lead role, not the titular role, that's played by Andrea Riseborough, and then Linus Roach, who's an actor I haven't seen in a while, plays the guy who abducts her, and for seemingly ritualistic reasons, I'm not entirely sure, but in any case, the whole thing is just really perfectly executed to sell us on the tone, the style, the aesthetic of the whole affair, and then it builds up to what's apparently one of the craziest scenes of the year, and it's a chainsaw fight between these two characters. I assume between these two characters, really long chainsaws, and apparently the movie is excruciatingly violent, like apparently beyond anything we've seen in a while. So I'm excited for that. So yeah, I'm surprised I didn't go with the Red Band trailer. Maybe it's so violent they couldn't or something, or maybe they didn't want to
spoil some of the good stuff.
Yeah, spoil some of the money shots, if you will. But yeah, maybe they literally couldn't. Maybe it's so violent that they decided to just kind of give us the basics of the story and the aesthetic. Whatever the case, it's my favorite trailer of the week. I think it's perfectly cut. I think Nicolas Cage looks great. Now, of course, there's this weird quote in this, and I just have to address this. It says that Nicolas Cage gives the performance of a lifetime. Guys, okay, he might be in wonky roles a lot. He might give performances that try way too hard in movies that don't deserve them. And there are times where he seems to be sleepwalking through a role sometimes, if it's just like a paycheck. He did that recently with a movie called Looking Glass, where the movie wasn't that bad, but he just seemed kind of bored in it, which isn't very often that happens. But he is a great actor capable of great performances. And it doesn't matter if he's in a slump right now. It's still true. And so if he's really good in this, maybe just say that he's really good in this. Don't say that he gives the performance of a lifetime. It basically it seems like a backhanded compliment to me. But in any case, he's one of my favorite actors. And 2 words, Matchstick Men. Watch it, folks. He's amazing in that movie. It's one of his typical performances. It's very idiosyncratic. Very much he leans into a lot of the aspects of the role. Maybe he's never quite exited that. Maybe that's why he's giving such weird performances lately. But he is a great actor, and he was great in Mom and Dad. It's not a very good movie from earlier this year, but he is really good in it. And so he's capable of greatness. Let's just lay off of him just a little bit. Dig into him when he deserves it, but I don't think he deserves it nearly as much as people seem to think. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that and on the trailer.
Yeah, I have one quick thing to add to that with the whole he gives the performance of a lifetime. I have 4 words for you. He has an Oscar. So I don't understand where people are getting this. Oh, Nicolas Cage, all he does is these B movies. Yeah, that's true. But the man, like Joel said, is capable of greatness. Like I am not joking when I say this. When the man finally passes after being 500 years old because he is immortal, when he passes after his mortality is finally restored, when he passes, he will go down as one of the best actors of all time, whether for his, Oscar stuff or, his slew of B movies, the man has range. And yes, he has done some garbage. But what actor hasn't? So I don't understand why people get into him as much. Like Joel said, if he gives a bad performance in a bad movie, lay into him. I remember there was one that Joel and I saw a couple years ago. It was, what was it called? It was at Arsenal.
Yeah,
that was bad. It's stuff like that where like, okay, cool, I'm gonna lay into him. But when he does stuff like this, and people are shocked, it's like, oh my God, Nicolas Cage is good. It's like, the man's always been good. He just makes sometimes bad decisions, like most actors. But as far as the trailer goes, this would be a great pairing with Suspiria. And the whole time while I was watching it, I was like, wow, this has like a kind of like unique European horror vibe to it. And I thought of the Suspiria trailer while I was watching. I was like, man, that would be a dope ass double feature. So, but as far as the trailer goes, it's visually compelling. It's colorful. It's vibrant. The blood, kind of pokes out with that really deep, dark crimson color. Nicolas Cage looks really great. Everyone else looks really great. The cinematography is gorgeous. The way it's cut is wonderful. I'm telling you, man, if this and Suspiria can come out just around each other, I might make that a double feature because they both kind of deal with cults, and so I'd be down for it. But no, I really love the trailer.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up real fast when it comes out, because if it does come out around that time, that's pretty perfect. Mandy, let's see. Okay, here it is.
Mandy, comes out in October, right?
Yeah, September 14th for Mandy. So
okay.
not exactly the same time, but I don't know. Maybe it'll still be in some sort of theater somewhere. I doubt it. In any case, yeah, looks really good, and I've been just it's one of the last movies composed by Johan Johansson before he passed away, sadly. So looking forward to a new score from him for sure. All right, and then we got one that's kind of a throwaway, at least in my mind, which is called "Support the Girls."
Yeah.
So take us into that one.
In a week of pretty good trailers, this one just kind of falls on the wayside. It's like, it's fine. It's not real. There's really nothing like offensively bad about it. It's just kind of like when you're going up against like the gold standard, you kind of look like you're bronze, and it's just like, it's not your fault. In any other given week, it might be the best trailer, but there's a lot more better trailers this week. So, but this one isn't bad. This one's called "Support the Girls," and speaking of Regina Hall, she plays a general manager at a kind of Hooters type of establishment, and the whole movie kind of follows her and her employees through the course of a day. And I don't know if you guys remember this movie, but this basically kind of reminds me of Waiting, the movie with Ryan Reynolds and Dane Cook, where they kind of focus on it's called a Shenanigans, and it's like an Applebee's, Chili's type of restaurant, and we focus on them throughout the entire day. Justin Long is a new employee, and so he kind of goes through the ins and outs of seeing the kitchen, the front of the house, and some of the bus boys. It's a really funny, raunchy comedy. It's not for everybody, I understand that, but that's what this one kind of reminds me of, except this is going to deal with all women, which is great because, everyone in the trailer was likable. They were charming. Regina Hall looks like she's going to ride that fine line of delivering her wonderful comedic timing and also provide some heart and levity to the film. It's going to be more of a I suspect that this is going to be more of a dramedy.
Yeah, it looks sincere rather than raunchy.
Exactly.
I mean, not
that
there can't be.
Go with it.
Yeah, not that there can't be sincerity and raunchiness.
Correct.
That's been proven in the past by like the Forellis and Apatow. But
because there's going to be a difference, because like in Waiting, there's a lot of heart in that movie, but there's also a scene where Dane Cook puts his pubes in the meal. I don't see that scene happening in this movie.
Right.
So
right.
That's where the difference lies. But this looks like kind of along the same lines like a Clerks, and I'm always down for those type of movies, but I think the heart of this trailer and probably this movie is going to be Regina Hall giving a very subtle performance, because she's usually pretty aggressive with her comedy, but it looks like she's going to kind of rein it back a little bit and give a big dose of heart, and I'm always down for that. But it's a fine trailer.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like honestly it was one of those trailers put into a generator.
Right.
They were just kind of given the computer was given the movie and then just like here, put it make a trailer.
Yeah, here post on interwebs.
Yeah. So it's nothing against like the movie itself looks good. It looks like it's going to be a good movie. I just think as a trailer, it's just kind of safe and bland. It's something that didn't really get me excited to see it. I was already kind of excited to see it.
But I just want people to know, and I'm not making this up. I've been a huge Regina Hall fan since I saw her in Scary Movie, and I'm 28 years old now, so I've been a fan of hers for 17 years. So I will watch anything with her in it. It's just that Joel is correct. It's a very kind of safe trailer, and there's really nothing kind of exciting about it.
Right. She's a national treasure, though, for sure. And then it also has Haley Lou Richardson, who's kind of broken out recently, and really like seeing that happen, especially in Columbus last year. It's a great movie that I don't think you saw, but it's a great little movie with John Cho.
I still have it on my Hulu queue. It's been on that queue for like 5 months.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And she's a rising star. She's also becoming a national treasure. I just love seeing her and stuff, and this one's probably going to be no exception. There's a great little last bit where she comes out with a little graffiti gun from the restaurant, and it kind of illustrates her talent. For being, kind of goofy, funny, sincere. And it's just really cute, but it's just kind of one of those trailers where they didn't really try very hard to try to sell it to us. And so it's disappointing in that way. But in any case, I'm a fan of the director, Andrew Bujalski, who has, it's weird though, because a few years ago he did this great little movie called Computer Chess, which is a great black and white sci-fi comedy. And kind of hard to describe it though, so I won't. But very, very weird, like wacky movie. And then he followed that up with this movie Results. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it had Kobe
Smulders.
Yeah, Kobe Smulders. What's that guy's name? He's like in everything. Anyway,
well, Joel, that doesn't really help me. Hey,
I know,
one
right?
guy's in everything.
Exactly.
It's like cool.
Yeah.
Is it
Kevin
Kevin
Corrigan?
Oh, I thought. Wait, what was the one she did with Guy Pearce?
He was in that too. That's right. Yeah, he was in that too. It was about she worked at a gym, and he was the leader of the gym, and then Kevin Corrigan was sort of her schlubby romance, and it wasn't very good. Like, it got really high reviews, and a lot of people liked it. I just thought it was really familiar, kind of very bland, very commercial, in a way that was belied by the limited release that it got. It wasn't more complicated than any other, generic Hollywood romance for me. So it was weird to see him go down that road. And this looks better than Results was. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it is, because there's a lot of material with potential here. I just hope he doesn't really squander, because there's a lot of interesting stuff on underneath the surface of Results that didn't really go explored at all. So hopefully this one's less disappointing. But yeah, it's just kind of fine. It's whatever. You know what's a pretty great trailer though is our last one, which is We the Animals. Now this one has been getting utter raves, like Moonlight level raves, since Sundance, which is a really good comparison actually, because both broke at Sundance and have been getting raves as being basically the best movie of the year or whatever. And this one comes out I think in mid-August, and it expands in throughout September. And it's another movie set within the world of poverty, following some kids, along the lines of I guess sort of American Honey, which was more about an older teenager. But definitely the Florida Project is in the same realm as this one. And just follows a bunch of kids. One of them almost drowns, so the dad seems kind of detached from their lives, and the mom is very worried about them, but seemingly kind of hopeless. There's not much plot here. There's not much plot in any of those kinds of movies. It's more about the experience of surviving this terrain. This one looks really strong. It's a really well cut trailer. It uses some interesting sound cues. It's just a really well put together trailer, and it looks like strong drama. So I'm really excited for this. If it can be as good as Florida Project, that would be hard to do, but it would be great. So What do you think?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like a Florida Project where they had because I know that the little girl and her mom, they were actors, but wasn't everyone else like they were real, right? Or what am I thinking of?
Well, I don't know, but what Sean Baker does is he combines a lot. So you had a couple of adult film stars in little tiny roles in it. You had some people who were actually, inhabitants of the real hotel because they shot there. You had Willem Dafoe and Caleb Landry Jones
Okay, well,
and Macon Blair as well. I was just going to finish it off with the fact that the little girl was not an actress. She was a newcomer. She was discovered when the director stalked her throughout a Target one day for 20 minutes. And then the mother was an Instagram star who had never been in anything. So you're right, though. I mean, they are essentially newcomers, and that was just kind of his thing. And I think that's kind of the same way here. There's no stars in this movie. There's nobody that's known at all, as far as I can tell. I've looked at the cast list, and none of the main cast members are anybody that we know. And the director, I don't think, has really done anything, really that big. So it's a lot of newcomers. So it's a lot of breakthroughs, and this certainly makes it a lot more interesting.
Well, I think that's where the benefit is that it looks real. It looks
Yeah.
like something that, or like a documentary, someone goes into a house, films a family, and this is what you get. And so it's going to have that kind of grounded reality that you want in these type of films to really deliver, the drama and the performances. And I think, like you said, it just looks really strong. And I don't know what was up with all these trailers this week, but most of them were all Sundance selections. So that's fascinating that all of these trailers are starting to come out to really prep people for the award season, and it just gets me excited. I know it gets you excited to see all these movies, because I know that one we're going to see for sure, We the Animals, because it's from The Orchard, I believe, and we usually get screen links for that, so
yes.
we should be able to see that one.
And they are a terrific screener outlet too. They're probably one of the best.
Yeah.
In terms of just the quality of what they send, whereas something like Well Go USA, I don't know if you've ever gotten anything from them where they put the watermark right in the middle of the screen and it's super big and really obvious. Okay, screener problems, first world problems. That might be even bigger than, wider than first world problems. In any case, to pivot from a bunch of limited releases to a major release, let's get into our review, and this is for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, I just have to give a disclaimer to everybody. There is going to be a spoiler section for this movie.
But we will warn you ahead of time. That way, if you don't want to listen, you can click off.
Yes, so it's going to sort of be like with Infinity War. It's not going to be as long. There's not quite as much to talk about, but there is stuff to talk about. And we're going to treat it like that. So we're going to give you, a fair 10 seconds to kind of turn away. Beyond that, you're on your own. You heard us warn you, and then the rest of it is your fault. So if you don't turn away, because there's a thing that we got to reckon with in the middle of the credits, but we'll get there later. So yes, this is the 20th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's also a sequel to Ant-Man from 2015. And once again, we've got, director Peyton Reed. Paul Rudd co-writes the screenplay and stars in the title role, or one of the title roles in this case. We catch up with Scott Lang basically a couple years after the events of Captain America Civil War, in which he sided against the Sokovia Accords and broke them in the process. And that has landed him in house arrest. So he is nearing the end of his house arrest. In fact, the story takes place about within maybe a couple days, right? And it's which has been happening a lot recently with these movies. They seem to happen within the span of a couple of days. But he's about 5 days away from the end of his run, and he is started to have visions of the quantum realm in which he was trapped at the end of the first Ant-Man movie. Except the visions come with something else. They come with the memories of another person, and that other person is Janet Van Dyne, who, of course, is the wife of Hank Pym and the mother of Hope, played by Michael Douglas. Michelle Pfeiffer is Janet, and then Evangeline Lilly as Hope. And so he contacts Hank and Hope, who have gone into hiding because of the fact that they made the tech and thus broke the law as well. And they resent him. They have not talked to him in a while, but he contacts them out of desperation. And in the process, they come across a couple of villains. They're going to try to save Janet from the quantum realm. But they come across a couple of villains. One of them is fairly generic. He's an arms dealer played by Walton Goggins, but the other one is a figure only known as the Ghost. She is played by Hannah John Kamen, and her real name is Ava. She was the victim of an experiment that left her to phase within realities. And so, yeah, that's basically the main through line of this one. So they kind of have to deal with the arms dealer and dodge in and out of the increasingly semi-villainous ways that Ava wants to get back to reality. And yeah, so that's pretty much the plot of this movie. So I was really excited. Ant-Man is a really fun movie, and I'm happy to report that it's this sequel is very solid. I liked it quite a bit. So I'll hand it over to Chase for his anticipation level and initial thought.
Yeah, so with the first Ant-Man, as you guys know, I did the whole Marvel marathon with my girlfriend right before Infinity War, so I have like a fresh kind of look at all of them. And while some of them have problems, not all of them are perfect, but there are some that are way better than others. There are some that are solid, and there are some that are just okay. But I think as a massive storyline on epic proportions, this is something that we've really never seen before, and they just continue to knock it out of the park. Because I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was solid. I liked it quite a bit. I'm kind of along the same lines as you, and I'm gonna have the same type of reaction as I saw like a Black Panther, where like people were going crazy over it, and it's just like, hey, that was solid, that was good. That's not a diss at it. It's just like, cool. It was a solid, good movie, and I think Ant-Man and the Wasp, it has a lot of great things about it, a lot of kind of mediocre things about it, but I think as a follow-up to Ant-Man, I was pleased because it follows the kind of Ant-Man, type of vibe and universe, and I didn't really have any. I have like one major thing with it, but as far as a follow-up to Ant-Man goes, I think they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, so to kind of start out my my more in-depth thoughts, I think that the thing that this movie does really well is realize that it doesn't have to completely, turn away from its predecessor. It really does remind a lot of its predecessor, and I think that that's a good thing. It keeps the tone, it keeps the balance of tone between the goofy and the sincere really well. Keeps the big heart that the first movie had. And it also, does what any good sequel, maybe not a great sequel, but a good sequel will do, which is keep what worked in the first one and not, break it because they think it's broken or something. It obviously worked in the first one, so it's going to work in the second one. And it also does an interesting thing that a lot of the other movies, the Avengers movies tend to do, as in the team up movies, is it kind of downplays Ant-Man's abilities in a smart way, because really, he shrinks and then his strength grows. But what use would that have been, for instance, on the apocalyptic battleground of Infinity War? I'm glad, actually, that they did not have this movie come out before Infinity War and then have him team up, because I feel like, he would have just kind of, kind of disappeared he would have disappeared into the background. He would have, and the story takes place before Infinity War, so obviously, we're gonna get into that, why that is later, but yeah, it's very smart about just kind of downplaying, kind of reckoning with the fact that he's got a cool ability, but it's not really a useful ability. It causes a lot of really fun action scenes, and it makes him useful as kind of the arbiter of kind of, not arbiter, kind of, he's able to stop bad guys, but what overall use is this other than being able to kick someone at the size of an ant and have him blow backward and like 10 feet or whatever, and it looks really funny and it looks really ridiculous, and we'll get into some of the chases later that happen in the movie, but but yeah, this movie does a really smart thing there by saying that he's kind of generally useful, but really mostly this is just a vessel for the visual effects team to kind of have fun with um, action sequences that play with perspective. The first movie did that a lot. You had the final big action scene with that was set on a Thomas and Friends train set. That was really clever because of the fact that occasionally it would kind of take an actual like grown person's approach, and it's literally just a couple of little lasers going around, and when one character gets run over by the train, we look back as the train literally just falls off the little wooden set. It was a really clever way of incorporating the size difference, and that's basically the sole reason that it existed is to kind of introduce us to the concept, and it did that in a really good way. And I think that this movie continues that, and so we get a lot of really solid action scenes, and you have like. This thing where they have the little discs that grow or shrink objects when you throw them onto them. And so you have this chase where during the process of it, a Hello Kitty themed Pez dispenser gets to block traffic because it's gotten the thing put onto it, and then it grows. And so it knocks a guy off of his motorcycle. And then another time you have a henchman's motorcycle. It has the shrinking thing thrown onto it, so suddenly it becomes a plaything, and he gets thrown off. And so you have this sense of fun. There's no real stakes to any of this action. It's just there to kind of stretch the legs of the visual effects artists, and the movie understands that. It doesn't feel the need to be really, really super dark or anything, except for in the story of the ghost, or Ava, as I guess we should call her, because she's an anti-villain, and there's a lot of sympathy there for her, especially as the story comes to its end. And in fact, when the movie does have something that's sincerely confronted, that's also dramatic, it kind of sticks out. So you have the arms dealer played by Walton Goggins, who has his own kind of agenda when he teams up with Hope to give her some all-important quantum equipment. Of course, he has his own agenda, and that means that there's really not much for him to do narratively. He's just kind of a placeholder. He's the usual. He's the latest villain, and there's really not much for him to do. And we'll get into the details of the mid-credit scene later, but of course, I have a problem with serious end-credit scenes that try to further the plot. This might be sort of a half exception, but the fact is that it's basically just reckoning to try to figure out events that have happened recently, and align this plot with that one, and so the movie becomes a little bit too much about plot. I guess it doesn't really need to. Otherwise, this is kind of a hangout movie where they're just trying to figure out how to save Janet, and I think that that's enough of a plot to be the engine of a movie. But luckily, we get a lot of focus on that, and so you have this idea of reuniting a family. This series has thus far been about family and the importance of it. And so you have the scenes, between Hope and Hank as they're trying to, figure out their own relationship after the revelation of the fact that Janet might still be alive, which of course followed the revelation that Hank had been kind of lying about Janet's supposed death in the first movie. And so you have that, and then you have the scenes with Scott and his kind of new makeshift family unit. Of course, you had Judy Greer as his ex-wife. She doesn't really have anything to do, which is kind of sad because it's Judy Greer. And then you had Bobby Cannavale as her new husband, who's a policeman, and he's kind of become used to the fact that Scott's this, kind of outlier in his immediate family. And then the endlessly adorable Abby Ryder Fortson as their daughter Cassie, who's great here. She's probably going to have a bigger role. Let's just say that. And so you have this theme of family, and that's what's important. A lot more important than the action scenes, a lot more important than the comic riffing of the ex-con accomplices played by Michael Pena and T.I. and that freaky dude from The Dark Knight. And that's here, of course, because it's an Ant-Man sequel, so we have to have it. We get a lot of the monologues from Michael Peña's character, and they're a lot of fun, especially when some of the main actors are able to get into that action. It's pretty neat. But the whole movie is literally a good movie, and I mean that in two ways. I mean that it's both good on its merits because Peyton Reed, the director, never lets the comedy overpower the movie's heart, and he also never lets the sincerity to just become saccharine, sentimentalizing of this plot. But it's also a pretty good movie in its values. Everybody here, except for the arms dealer, is sympathetic, and so it's never too serious. It's basically goes the other way from stuff like the DCEU, which seems to overexert to bring us a lot of really dramatic, grim things. This is not doing that until the mid-credit scene, but we'll get to that after your review. So that's pretty much my takeaway. It's a strong movie. It's probably automatically the weakest movie in the MCU of this year, just because there's not as much going on here. Certainly not as much as Infinity War. Probably not as much as Black Panther, which I think had stronger performances, particularly from the villain in that movie. Michael B. Jordan, and so it's probably automatically the weakest of that, and maybe the weakest of Phase 3 so far, but that doesn't really mean much because it's been a really strong phase for them. So, that's pretty much my review, and I'm just gonna go out and say that I'm giving this a solid B. It's really fun. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. I think what Peyton Reed understood was this is an Ant-Man movie, and you need kind of a palate cleanser after what we just got from Infinity War, and I think this is the perfect, not only hero, but perfect installment to do that, because, as Joel alluded to, and this totally makes sense when you are given the fact that Scott, I think, as far as my memory is collecting right now, I think he's the only hero that has a kid. Correct?
Yes, he is actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the only hero that actually has a child, and so this, sequel as well as the first one always has that family theme. So ironically enough, the Ant-Man movies have always been great family entertainment, and the director knows that. He uses, the small and big technology for the comedy, and there is some heartfelt moments, but it doesn't take away from the story. It's just, it's there, it's cute, it's sweet, and then we move on. And so Peyton Reed understands that after what we just got, we kind of need this nice little levity until the mid-credits scene. Some nice levity after what we just saw. And I think, with this kind of continuation of the Ant-Man storyline, I think it's perfect for what it is. Now,
yes,
I what's really funny is that you bring up Ava / Ghost being kind of an anti-hero, and I believe that. But what's really funny, when I got out of the movie, I was like, this movie doesn't really have any villains. It's just more of hiccups, little hiccups.
Yeah. Even the arms dealer. I mean, it's such a generic form of villainy that literally his entire thing is that he just kind of double crosses someone.
Correct.
That's it. And then also you kind of have another double cross in the narrative. It's totally predictable, completely predictable, and kind of meaningless because that character sort of kind of redeems his or herself by the end. There's certainly, like I said, all the characters except for the arms dealer are sympathetic, and so even the arms dealer, it's such a generic kind of vague villainy that even he's not really a villain. It's just kind of a way to separate a certain artifact that they're after from getting into their possession for some time, and then of course, it's a hero movie. So, I mean, even Ava, and I think I called her an anti-villain, kind of, because she's going about what she wants to do the wrong way, because it's sort of like a means to an end kind of thing for her. whatever it takes, kind of thing. So she's going about it the wrong way, but it definitely doesn't make her a pure villain. Absolutely not. She's desperate. She's not evil. And so,
and
yeah,
that's why this movie was so weird to me, because it's not really a hero and villain type of movie. It's more of, hey, we have to get Janet out of the quantum realm, and that is our objective. And we got a couple of hiccups along the way, and they eventually or may not meet their goal. And that's what the movie is. It's not anything more. It's not anything less. And that's what's so brilliant about it, because it's just a bare bones type of movie. But it's great for this Ant-Man character because, like Joel said, yes, he can be useful in some fights, but to bring him into Infinity War and try to even attempt to battle Thanos is asinine, because he would get his ass kicked. So
oh, yeah.
That's why it's perfect that he was on house arrest, and it actually makes perfect sense plot-wise, considering what he did in Civil War and going against the Sokovia Accords. So it makes perfect sense.
And we can get into theories all we want, but of course he's going to be in the next movie.
Correct.
And I suspect that there is going to be no scene in which he actually faces down Thanos. That's they had the brief bit in Infinity War with Spider-Man facing him down, but he was easily defeated.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't, and so this guy, I mean, it's there's not going to be a fight. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no, I mean, he's just kind of generally useful. He would be useful with a collective.
Correct.
But on his own, he's not gonna actually do anything of worth in a big team up movie like that. He just kind of adds personality. And
Paul Rudd is basically that. He's a walking personality.
He gives
wrong with that.
He gives one of the best lead performances in the MCU. I'm convinced of that. I think I like him almost as much as I initially liked Robert Downey Jr. And of course, Downey Jr.'s kind of come a long way, even as an actor in that role of Tony Stark. So I don't know if Rudd's there yet, but he has that ability. And we'll briefly mention the places that his character's potentially going to go, and so he can kind of build on that. And he's a pretty effective dramatic actor too. So I have a feeling that we're in good hands for sure, even when it comes to the less goofy stuff that he has to do. So really just a very charismatic presence.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean that's what these movies kind of rely on, is that Paul Rudd backbone to really kind of carry throughout the movie. And I guess going into that, like, he's once again great as Scott. There might be a couple times where some of his one-liners or some of his riffs or his kind of responses to a question might be a little forced humor, but I mean that's what it's going to be for most comedies. It's going to be hit and miss on some jokes, and some of them were a miss, but that's not enough to deter away from the experience. Because I think for the most part, even if his riffs don't really work, the main comedy is the shrinking and growing technology that he has on his suit. And when you have Paul Rudd doing his improv, it's genius, because he knows how to kind of bounce off things in a room and really kind of be in the moment. And that's what he's best at. So when you apply that to this weird Ant-Man technology, it makes for an entertaining type of movie. And I think some of the funniest moments are when, I won't say what the context is, I will just say that his button malfunctions and he can't really grow or shrink properly, and he might get stuck in certain
and it actually happens in a school, so it's just really funny because he's
perfect.
We won't give away any more context, but let's just say he's easy to mistake. So anyway, it's a great scene. Yeah, I also have to give props to Randall Park, who plays an FBI agent named Jimmy Woo, and I want more of him. Now we'll get into some dark discussion involving him and everybody else here in a few minutes, but yeah, it's just a great little addition to that part. So
yeah, I mean, that's what the Ant-Man movies are. It's comedy first, and I think they know that, and they cast the right people to support that, and that goes with Randall Park, or going back to Michael Pena, and his montage sequences, or even with T.I. and, like you said, the weird dude from The Dark Knight having their little quips. It's all there, and it all connects very well, and the action sequences are really well done. I love the whole third act. The whole third act is one of the more entertaining things I've seen this year. Just from start to finish, it's just a great car chase scene, really utilizing the technology. So here's where it's not really an issue, but just more of hey, it's just kind of there, and I was like, I wish they could have done it a little bit more gracefully. So there is this character, Ghost, Ava, and then you have like a Lawrence Fishburne, and then you have like a Walton Goggins. I won't say what any of them do in the movie, but I will just say that their characters did rely a lot on, hey, I'm going to sit you in a room and explain a bunch of things. And so,
they're exposition machines, essentially. Yeah.
And that kind of got under my skin just a hair, but I think what it boils down to is that what I just said earlier is that there's really no villains in the film. It's just more kind of like robot block characters, to where I appreciate those characters being in this. They add a little bit more variation with the PIM technology, because that's what this movie has at its core, is the PIM technology. Everybody wants it, and so there's a lot of different situations that people have encountered with it, and so that's where these characters come into play. But they are exposition machines, and so that was very noticeable. Not really too much.
Yeah, it doesn't register as much as it does in like Thor: The Dark World, where literally every single thing they do is explain the plot. And you have the villain come in and explain the plot. That's why it's a better movie than that. It's just a better put together movie than some of those that just use all of the characters to explain to each other and thus to the audience what they're talking about.
It's one of those things to where I can't get too angry, because Corey Stoll did the same thing as Yellow Jacket in the first one.
Right.
So it's not something I can be like, oh man, this movie did it. It's like, no, they still do.
And so did Michael Douglas, and he gets a little bit more to do here. He gets some jokes, and
Well, that's what I was going to get to, is that at the core of the movie, it's about them getting getting Janet, and I think that's what is kind of like the engine running in this movie, and everything about that whole journey is just it's sweet and it's powerful to have them to get the tunnel working, and then Michael Douglas going into the quantum realm, which, by the way, getting into the quantum realm, I love the visual effects work in that. Very psychedelic, trippy.
But
stuff,
it doesn't, but not like overly so. It doesn't.
Doctor Strange. It's more of like a Doctor Strange light, and that was a really great journey to see. Hank go in there and may or may not get his wife back, but I guess to kind of bleed into that, the visual effects works are stunning once again, whether it's shrinking, growing, ants, humans, objects. It's all spectacular stuff. And I think people are, from what I've seen online, and it kind of irritates me because Joel and I see this all the time, where people put expectations on themselves and they go, wow, Infinity War was amazing. This next one is going to kick ass. It's going to be the best thing in the universe. And Ant-Man and the Wasp doesn't even make my top 5, but that doesn't take away from the fact, as a standalone movie, it's a good movie. And I think people's expectations from walking out of Infinity War got to the better of them. And I've heard a lot of people on say that, this villain was pointless. This whole movie was stupid. It was lame. There was nothing. There was no risks that were taken. It was just a safe movie. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you, because every single one of these movies in this universe are extremely different. And the fact that you would go from Infinity War to this is probably one of the smartest decisions you could ever make. And the one thing I really like about the Ant-Man movies is that, it's like a family type of movie. It's like an Incredibles 2 type of situation versus like an Infinity War where it's more kind of adult and dark and stuff. And I don't understand like why people complain about that. And it's just,
this is also, I just want to say, this is the closest they've come to a PG, I think, ever.
Yeah, if they would have just taken out the curse words and maybe some of the darker stuff.
The violence is so like, it's rated PG-13, and I quote, for some sci-fi action violence. And it's got a few words in there, and if they take those out, literally becomes PG because the violence is so tame.
Yeah.
It's actually tamer than Incredibles 2,
Yeah.
honestly. And yeah, so it's perfectly okay for kids as long as you can stomach a few bad words. That's about it.
Yeah.
And it's not even in the rating, so there's no F words. There's nothing like that. It's just a few non-PG words, and that's it. And and yeah, it's so family friendly, and it's
Yeah.
literally about family.
And that's what's
So
great about it, because it has its own tone and it sticks with it. And I'm usually a fan of when directors do a couple movies and then move on from the franchise. I actually wouldn't mind if Peyton Reed finished out his trilogy, because I think he
yeah,
knows what this material is, and he did a pretty
I
great
would
job.
I would love a third movie. I
Yeah.
think that it's a really solid series so far.
Well,
So yes,
we also forgot to mention, just real quick, Evangeline Lilly is the Wasp. She gets a bigger role in this, as well as
yes,
Hank, and they all three, once again, great chemistry, great combat sequences, and this is actually more about the Pyms than it is about Scott. And
yes, yeah, and really solid
yeah,
performances from all of them. And when Michelle Pfeiffer comes in finally, she's really
it's a
good as
beautiful
well.
moment. It actually almost made me shed a tear. I was like, this is a great moment. Like,
Yeah,
Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, they actually seem like a believable couple. It was sweet. So
yeah,
I'm actually in agreement with Joel. I'm going to give Ant-Man and the Wasp a solid B.
yeah, really good stuff. All right, guys, briefly, we got to get into something. So this is your warning. This is the spoiler warning. So we're going to give you just about 5 or 6 seconds here to turn away. Um, all right, moment of silence. Okay, so as we all know, in Avengers: Infinity War,
They dusted.
Thanos
They dusted,
dusted.
Joel. Oh my God, they
Thanos,
dusted.
hold on, Thanos snapped his fingers, and half of the universe, or yeah, half the inhabitants of the universe were dusted away. And I assume that extends to any living thing. I've never seen any ants disappear, but I assume that that's what that means. In any case, um, yeah, so that happened in Avengers: Infinity War. Now I got to back up a bit because this story takes place at least a few weeks before that happens. That's what I'm thinking, because of a very specific reason. So we do not see in this one any sort of reports about any sort of happenings about Tony Stark's disappearance, which we saw was a news item on the TV in Scotland when Vision and Scarlet Witch were there. So I assume that this takes place several weeks before that happens. However, the mid-credits sequence I have to build up to. So the entire movie is about trying to find Janet, and also it eventually becomes trying to help Ava, because they believe that Janet has uh, you know potentially kind of taken in a lot of the powers of the quantum realm, and thus could potentially heal Ava's problem, and she does that sort of. She is able to steady her mind a little bit, help the phasing to kind of be a little bit more in control, even though it's really not, fully in control yet. And so this presents a lot of interesting, problems for them, because they're going to try to have to figure out how quantum energy works, and to do that, they've got to enter the quantum realm. So a few weeks after the events of this movie happen, we have in the mid-credits scene, Hank has developed a quantum tunnel that isn't as big as a building anymore, because that's where it was held. It was held in a big building throughout the movie. He's able to put it in the back of Luis's van. In the mid-credits sequence, they have readied the entryway to accept Scott into it so that he can bottle up some of the quantum energy, and he does so. He goes in, he puts it a little bit of it into there. He's about to come back. There's a countdown started by Hope. By the time then there's a big explosion of color and a pop. It's very, very obvious pop. And the countdown stops, and suddenly he's like, what, come on guys, take me back, this is really funny. And now we cut back to find that Hope, Hank, and Janet are all gone. They have all been dusted into oblivion, as the camera kind of moves elegantly through the dust and takes in the scene. And then we cut back to Scott, who is now trapped in the quantum realm. He's essentially subatomic at this point, and that means that there is no path for escape because the only three people who knew that he was there or can help him escape it into the present day are now gone. And we don't know who else is gone. We don't know if Cassie's gone. We don't know if his ex-wife's gone. We don't know if Jimmy Woo is gone. We don't know who else is gone. We don't know if Luis is gone. We only know that Hope, Hank, and Janet are all gone after having just been reunited. So this leaves a lot of really interesting places for Infinity War to go, and I think that it's safe to assume that we're going to go through with this, so we're not going to get into a lot of those theories now, at least not the very serious ones. But I do want to announce that sometime after Captain Marvel and sometime before the next Avengers movie, we are going to host an extra episode of Reel Me In. We might even loop in, maybe a guest on there or something, but it's primarily going to be us, and we're going to kind of go through a lot of the theories that we think or the things that we think are gonna take place. But I just wanted to say that I think that the filmmakers could have crapped out on us. They could have provided some little tiny thing where one of the characters is gone and now the other ones have to reckon with that. I was personally predicting that it was going to be Scott and Hope surviving, and Hank and Janet, after having been reunited, are the ones that disappeared. I know that Chase had a different prediction, but that was my prediction, and this is a lot more interesting than I think either of our predictions would have been if they came true. Because now we have three characters gone, one character stranded in an unknown variable. It's the potential that the next movie could be about time travel. I assume that something within the quantum realm is going to, factor into that. But yeah, I mean, what did you think of the sequence? Because I thought that it was as well played as the finale of Infinity War. I thought that it really tapped into that whole, as Thanos put it when he was explaining his method, the random, dispassionate, and fair speech that he made, where he just wanted to, it wasn't, specific to any one person. It was just a collective genocide of half the universe. Didn't matter who it was, didn't matter their history. It was just random. And I thought that they really tapped into that very well because of the stakes that it presents Scott. It was three random characters who just happened to be related. An entire family is gone. And so I thought that they played it beautifully, especially the camera work, and I just wanted to get your take on that scene.
Yeah, so before we even saw the movie, my girlfriend and I specifically said someone is getting dusted in that mid-credit scene to kind of whet our appetites even more before next May and let us wait in agony for almost a year, by the way. Marvel, what are you doing? So when the mid-credit scene came on, we're like, she leaned towards me. She's like, oh, I know what's going to happen now. And it's like, once she said that, it clicked in my head like, oh yeah, Scott's going in the tunnel and he's not going to be able to come out. Now, at first, I was kind of with Joel. I thought they were going to do just kind of like one person. But to be honest with you, I actually thought the end credit scene was going to be something completely different. I thought that it was going to be... I actually didn't think it was going to show Hope or Scott. I thought it was just going to show Hank and Janet in their new home on the beach. And they're having a conversation. And Hank is the one that dusts. Because it'd be a great kind of, mirror comparison when, he lost Janet into the subatomic realm all those years ago, that she would lose him in this kind of like mysterious dusting. I thought that's how they were going to do it, which would have been even crazier. But the fact that all three of them are gone and Scott is stuck there for the time being, that's even more devastating. And like Joel said, puts both of our theories to shame. I didn't even think they were going to go down that route. And that, I know it's like a really minor thing, but camera work is important. And when they did this kind of like nice little swoop and sweep with the camera to go through the dust particles and then to the radio dispatcher, and that gave me chills. I was like, oh wow, he's stuck there. And then of course I know we're not. I know Joel didn't mention it, but the end credit scene, the very very end one, is basically there's an empty house. Scott's house is empty. The broadcast signal is going off on the television, and then it cuts to the giant ant playing the drums. So that's excusing that scene. The mid-credit one was definitely just as jaw-dropping as Infinity War, and I'm so glad they are doing these ballsy endings, man. And Avengers 4, get here, please.
Exactly. I have a feeling that we're in for potentially a lot more dustings in Captain Marvel.
Oh,
either they're gonna like, I don't know what they're gonna do. Maybe a mid-credit scene where they show everybody else getting dusted, or they're just gonna reveal to us their fates in the next movie. I kind of hope that they do the dusting scene at the end of Captain Marvel, because that's going to just quiet all of the houses. Nobody's gonna have any dry eyes. It's gonna be insane, because there's a lot of characters we don't know their fates of yet.
And just to get super nerdy really quick, remember Captain Marvel, and we'll get to that when we review it, and even in our extra video, that's dealing with the Skrulls and the invasion that the Skrulls have on Earth. We have no idea which Avenger is truly them, or if they're a Skrull in disguise. That's like a whole nother geeky element that we won't get into right now, but just think about that as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. All right, guys, I'm going to very quickly get into my review of the first Purge. Again, not a whole lot to say, but basically this one is the fourth film in the Purge franchise, and it's a prequel to all the other ones. This one, obviously, as the title suggests, talks about the first Purge, which was created out of a desire. It's the 12-hour period in which all crime, including murder, is legal, and it was created out of a desire to lower crime to 1% annually. Which we kind of learn in this one. I don't really think they expressively talk about that in the talk about that in the other movies, but that's the specific percentage. They want to lower it that much. And once again, it's just about a group of stragglers who try to survive. So this series has kind of been up and down for me. I finally caught up to election year right before seeing this one, and thought it was okay. Certainly better than the first movie, which basically took this premise and just made a home invasion thriller out of it, which made no sense to me. And I thought it was a really weak one too. Thought it was very poorly acted by everybody except for Ethan Hawke, and even he kind of seemed to be sleepwalking through it. The second movie opened it up to the outside, and I thought that because of that, it actually kind of worked. It's not particularly great in any way, but it was a pretty good movie because it finally actually reckoned with the rules of the premise, and it also had this great scene where two sisters come at loggerheads, and on the worst night to do so. And I thought that kind of summed up the whole movie. And like I said, the third one was okay. I thought it pushed a little hard on the political allegory of the time, because it came out right in the midst of a very contentious election process. And so this one comes out 2 years into a Trump presidency, and I think that it's still kind of stuck in that mindset from before he was president in some way. It really pushes a little too hard on the fact that this is one big political allegory, and it does something interesting. It specifies its political targets. There's one scene where one character is about to be sexually assaulted and specifically grabbed by a certain part of the body, and she quotes someone. Let's just say, that should give it away for you. So there's stuff like that in this where it just kind of pushes a little too hard, and that's the reason I think this movie doesn't quite work. But it's surprisingly okay. I think it's maybe the second best of the series. In relative terms. Basically the plot here follows a drug kingpin played by Elon Noel, and his ex-girlfriend Naya, played by Lex Scott Davis, who is trying to, the kingpin's trying to keep his business afloat during the purge. The ex-girlfriend's trying to keep people safe in a church, and then her brother Isaiah, played by Joyvan White, is actually wanting to purge because there's a neighborhood goon, played this weirdo psychopath who likes to kill with a knife and straps some syringes to his hand. Is going around in the neighborhood and just randomly killing people, and so he kind of wants to take care of him. So it follows them, and then it also kind of cuts back and forth with the politics of it, where the doctor who created the experiment, played by Marissa Tomei, is not really worried about the political ramifications of this experiment, whereas the political figures are behind the new founding fathers of America, political party that's been born in the wake of this. And so it just kind of cuts back between those two storylines. And for that purpose, I guess it's fine enough, but it's not really well acted by anybody. They're all kind of poorly performed. I guess the guy who plays the Kingpin's fine. But in any case, it's just, another excuse for a lot of bloodletting and a lot of gore. It's maybe a little more thoughtful than, some of the previous entries, but for the purposes of actually confronting a lot of political ideas, I think that it's too stuck in this formulaic slasher mode to really do anything with that plot. And that's kind of the problem with this series. The other major problem with the series has, for me, always been the fact that they really only define crime by murder. There's not really many other crimes present in this series. We don't go to the taboo places of fulfilled sexual assaults, for instance, or stuff involving children, and you wouldn't want to if you want to make money off this idea, but it's still kind of a natural limitation of the storytelling that there's not an NC-17 version of this story somewhere. And maybe Assassination Nation will fulfill that. I don't know. But in any case, it's natural limitation of this movie, and I think that it limits the effect that the movie can have. And so then you have to reckon with the fact that it's really just kind of a raggedy production. It's not very well edited or acted. The action sequences are just kind of tired, stuff that we've seen before. And then, but there is one brief scene that actually kind of sums up what it could be. This is, I guess, not really a spoiler so much, but I guess if you don't want to know anything about the movie, then whatever, you probably listened too far into this review to get to that point. But there is one brief scene. So the sister and brother pair are trying to make their way somewhere on the streets, during the middle of the purge, and someone comes up and terrorizes them with a gun. You can tell, you can't really see the guy's face because he's wearing a mask. They all wear masks in this movie, and that's actually made into a plot point at one point. So you can't really see his face, but it's a white person. So you know that he's kind of wanting to terrorize a couple of black people, and these are both black people. So he comes up to them with a very real looking gun, and screams at them, does wild maneuvers, and threatens to, or kind of voicelessly threatens to shoot them, and then he does, and it's a water gun. And so you kind of get this feeling that essentially his purging is done, because what he wants to do is be a public menace. He's not wanting to kill. He's wanting to commit a misdemeanor. And so you actually finally get a sense that there are other crimes that people want to do. There's also a brief glimpse of people, having sex in public at one point, very brief, that obviously that's illegal. So that's their purging, all of that stuff. The series kind of undermines its own premise by not exploring it fully. And so, on balance, it's okay, but I think that they could really use kind of a rethinking of the limits of their premise. Go the deep art house route with this. It doesn't matter if people see it on a wide scale. People will watch them, and go far with it. Go all the way. And so that's kind of my major problem with this franchise, and it kind of comes to a head in this one. So it's okay overall, but it doesn't really work for me, and I'm giving the first Purge a C+. So that's my final analysis of
it. I do not care what Joel says about the franchise. He could say it's the worst thing ever, the best thing ever, because guess what? I'm still going to watch it.
You are a sad, sad individual. I'm just kidding. You're not. All right,
Whatever,
guys.
man. Whatever.
All right. So, Chase, it's your turn to guess. Of course, the box office this week. Now we've kind of not done this for a while, so I'm going to give you a hint about some of the movies that have opened this week, these past few weeks, because it might be easy to forget, just because we haven't been doing it, to forget that that there, there are other movies. So we have, this week Ant-Man and the Wasp and the First Purge, which opened on Wednesday. So keep that in mind. There's obviously more of just a weekend total for that. And then, of course, last week we had Sicario 2, which I saw, by the way. It's kind of blah for me. Whatever. And Uncle Drew came out. Jurassic World's been out for a couple weeks. So, yeah, just kind of keep that in mind. And take a guess, sir, at what the top 5 is. From 5 to 1.
Oh, I hate you so much. I hate doing this because I embarrass myself. Oh, man. Okay, so number 5, I will go with... 5, I'll go Sicario. 4, I will go... 4, Incredibles 2. 3, Jurassic Park. 2, The First Purge. 1, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
You got all 5, but you switched 2 of them.
No!
All right. So, So number 5 is going to be Sicario, Day of the Soldado, with 7.3 million for a domestic total of 35.3 and a worldwide total of 43.5 or 43.6, I should say. It's got a $35 million budget, so it's kind of crawling, I guess, up there. It's only been a week though, so I suspect it'll do well just slowly. It's got, heavy competition, so not too bad so far. And then number 4 is a debut. It's The First Purge. It's got a weekend gross of 17.2 million, but of course, because it came out Wednesday, it's got a total gross of 31.1 and a worldwide gross of 42. And it's on a $13 million budget. Of course, it's made for nothing because it's Jason Blum. And it's already broken even, and it's well on its way to making back its advertising budget. So, doing really well, as pretty much all Blumhouse productions do these days. Dropping from number 1 to number 3 is Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom with 28.6, and for a total domestic gross of 333.3. Say that 5 times fast. And a worldwide total, get this, of $1.06 billion.
It already reached $1 billion?
It already reached $1 billion.
Oh my God, Joel, we need to make a dinosaur movie. We're doing everything wrong in our lives. Jeez.
Exactly. And it's got a $170 million budget. So it's a hit. It's a hit. Staying at number 2 is Incredibles 2 with 29 million. It's got a total domestic gross of 504.4 and a worldwide gross of 772.8. Of course, we don't know the budget on that, but they're usually around 60 or 70 million dollars, so it's doing really well. And then, yes, number 1 is obviously Uncle Drew. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, Uncle Drew surged in the polls
yeah.
at the last second.
Actually, no, it fell 56.5%.
Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah, it dropped from number 4 to number 6, so it only opened at number 4.
Yikes.
And then, yeah, it's not a very good movie either, guys. You could do worse, though. Anyway, yes, number 1 is Ant-Man and the Wasp with 76 million domestically. Pretty good debut. The first one made, I think, 55.
So about 20 mil more. Yeah,
which I was kind of expecting. Yeah, pretty much. And then a worldwide gross of course, 161. So, yeah, doing really well. Obviously, that one doesn't have a listed budget either because Marvel tends to keep those under wraps. But I can't imagine that it's more than $150 million at what it is. So I suspect that it's already made the baseline budget back, and it's well on its way to breaking even.
Joel, does it
So
frighten you that Disney has the top 2 spots?
it's crazy. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. And
They're
then
both superhero films.
and then Universal has the next 2 spots.
Yeah.
So because Universal owns Blumhouse, and they do
Jurassic.
or they work with Blumhouse, whatever. I don't know if they own Blumhouse, but
I think Blumhouse they signed like a mini year deal with Universal.
oh, okay. Well, then there you go. So they work with Universal then.
Yes.
Elsewhere, we had a couple of limited releases. Well, I guess one of them's kind of a wide release. It's not as wide as the other ones, but Whitney, the documentary about Whitney Houston, made 1.3 million this week. It opened at number 11, and it's the first week for this, so that's pretty impressive. 452 theaters. Yeah, that's a good number. And then the limited release of Sorry to Bother You started up this week, and this thing just about like soared. It made 44,000 a theater.
That's really good.
Yeah, really good. 16 theaters, $717,000. So that's a really good number. Let's see, any big rises otherwise? Yeah, Superfly suddenly jumped up 318%. I don't know. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah.
No, Three Identical Strangers. Sorry, I was reading the thing and it didn't line up. No, so Boundaries rose 403%. That's a movie with Vera Farmiga and Christopher Plummer and Christopher Lloyd. Plummer and Lloyd. That one rose up. I haven't seen that. Don't suspect that I will until DVD. And then Three Identical Strangers added 46 theaters to its run, so it jumped up big time. It made 717 as well. It's about $300 away from Sorry to Bother You this weekend. Pretty interesting. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously the day of the Soldado drop was huge. Gotti also managed to drop 74% more, down to it's only up to 4.3 million in 4 weeks. So
it lost 230 theaters.
I know, yeah, $82,000 this weekend. It's insane. So I guess nobody's interested in a movie that nobody's heard of and that wasn't, screened for critics in advance. But no, the audiences want you to see it. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. That's the box office news this week.
Well, that sounds pretty great. My OCD is kicking in because as I'm looking at the list, Disney, I don't really like the fact that you'll probably rule the world one day and we'll have to be bowing down to Mickey Mouse. But I will say this. My OCD is going off the charts right now because this is bothering me. Black Panther is still making money in theaters. That's fine. It is less than $200,000 away to getting to $700 million. Can we please get it to that? I am so sick and tired of looking at that $6.99. Just release it for a weekend, and you could probably get it. It's bothering me, Joel. It's bothering.
Well, you have fun with that existential crisis.
Good. I want my numbers to be even, Joel. Even. Ridiculous.
Well,
it's been at $6.99 for forever.
Monk would be proud of you.
Good.
All right. So next week is not as big a week, certainly as this one, but our main review is going to be Skyscraper.
So basically, Rampage,
Rampage 2
all over again.
Rampage with a giant building, instead of a giant alligator. So that's the new Dwayne Johnson movie. He tends to have one every 3 weeks, and this is his newest one, where he has a big, gigantic, high concept action movie. And then I'm going to be offering two extra reviews, and I will reveal that to you next week, I suppose. But yeah, I'll be having 2 next week, so y'all can have fun with that. And I guess I'll just go ahead and plug my stuff. I'm on Twitter at Real Joel Copling. That's REL. You can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. I reviewed a bunch of stuff this weekend. And then you can find some of my writing at dallasmoviescreenings.com, although it's been kind of a barren wasteland for me for a while. And then you can find also my reviews at Letterboxd on Jay Copling. So, join Letterboxd. It's awesome. That's just my advertisement for them. Chase, where are you found on the internet, on the dark web? Ha,
On the
no.
well, I am seeing that on Thursday. You can follow me on Twitter at Real Chase Lee. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can get reviews that I won't do on the show. Like for instance, I am seeing Unfriended 2 on Thursday, reviewing that for Dallas movie screenings the following week, and I will not have it on the podcast, but you can see my review on that YouTube channel. And of course, with this podcast, if you're listening on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to, please spread this around and let people know this is the definitive movie podcast. It's your favorite one, and just force them to listen to it. If they hate it within the first 5 seconds, that's fine, but at least you tried, and we appreciate you. We appreciate all listeners of this show, and you guys are awesome. Just keep on listening. We really enjoy it. So, Skyscraper next week should be, I guess, fun. I don't know what to expect, but we'll find out. And of course, Joel with his mini reviews, but you guys won't know those until the actual day of. That's what makes it fun. So we will see you guys next week for another episode of Real Me and a movie podcast. This has been episode 237, and let all your thoughts and comments down below. We will see you guys next week. Dwayne Johnson with another movie in cinemas. So peace out. That is Joel over there. I'm Chase, and you guys are awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.